Hello and welcome to the July 17th meeting of the Historic District Commission. We have a smaller group with us tonight, but we do have one member on Zoom, so I will go ahead and do introductions. On my right is Dan Brown.
Good evening.
We have Vice Chair Margot Doring.
Hello.
I'm Chair Reagan Rudig. We have Isaac Gilbo from the Planning Department.
Good evening.
John Wyckoff.
Hello.
And David Adams.
Good evening.
Everyone else is, and then on Zoom we should hopefully have Larry Booz, who is our alternate, and we'll be voting tonight since we're missing Rich Blaylock and Martin Ryan. I'll just read that this board's action in these matters has been deemed to be quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point or it will be deemed waived. We have a pretty short agenda tonight, just a few administrative approvals. I'll go over quickly the request to postpone now, just in case anybody wants it. The first one is the request to postpone public hearing B, which is the petition of Maximilian Kolbe Hochschwender, owner for property located at 44 Rogers Street. The petition, public hearing C, the petition of Emily Niehaus and Bernard T. Rosler, owners for property located at 44 Gardner Street. And then the first two work session requested by Kevin Shitan Zhang, Revocable Trust of 2017, owner for property located at 377 Maplewood Avenue. And then number two, work session requested by Jeffrey Daniel Berlin, owner for property located at 38 State Street, Unit 4. So can I get a motion to postpone all of those to August?
Move to postpone.
Second.
All right, we have to do a roll call since Larry's on. So, Dan?
Yes.
August?
Yes. Aye.
Dan? Larry?
Pulling for you, Larry.
I don't see that Larry has made it on.
Oh,
quite
he's
yet,
not on yet.
so-
Okay, fine. Well, chair votes aye. Okay, we're good. We still have a quorum.
We still have a quorum. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
All right. We'll let Isaac go through our four administrative approvals.
Okay, good evening. So does anyone have to recuse from any of the administrative approval items before getting started? Okay, great.
Because then we wouldn't have a quorum.
Item number one, 621 Islington Street. This affects units A, B, and C. So the applicant here is seeking approval to change out this existing glass front door here, and they would like to use this Therma-Tru door. It is a similar, if not exact, match to the existing units and will be painted the same blue color, which you can see right here. The additional scope of work is to replace this existing entry for units A, B, and F as well. Essentially the current deck that's there is just rotting and needs to be replaced. They're proposing to do the same style deck in the same location. They are proposing to use a PVC material versus wood for that. And the last scope of work is to repair this vinyl siding that is missing around unit C.
Sorry, Isaac, when you say PVC, do you mean Trex or do you mean AZEK?
They didn't specify AZEK or Trex. They just had mentioned it would be a maintenance-free material, so I figured that would be PVC of some kind. If you'd like, we could have them return in August with a particular brand, if that's helpful.
Curiosity.
I will say this particular scope of work is also not visible from a public way.
Yep.
Any further questions on that? Okay. So that will bring us to 195 Washington Street. I just have one edit for this particular request. The HVAC portion of it is not going to be considered this evening. It does require Board of Adjustment approval. Therefore, they need to secure that first before they can bring that back to us. We'll just be looking at the gate locations this evening. Therefore, the applicant is seeking approval to install a gate that would go across the driveway here. It's a double arched gate that just meets in the middle. It's about 4 feet high at the highest point. And also a gate that would run between this corner of the property. Essentially, the applicant, here's an example of the walkway gate. They're proposing to do the black aluminum. And this is an example of the gate for the driveway, which would also be black aluminum. They just had a white sample photo. The applicant is really just wanting to install this so her dog can have a safer place to just be outside.
Do we know how they're hooking it to the building or
Exactly.
post or anything?
I did not see.
They have to. No room for posts.
Yeah, it was my understanding that it was going to attach directly to each structure that it's going in between, the
Do
front
they-
and the rear.
Does the applicant own both houses?
They do not. They do know that they would have to get, approval from their neighbors for that.
Along with that, in both locations, there's an aluminum downspout that's right on the corner of where the applicant would be. I mean, I don't know.
That could be.
I have no enormous design problem with it, other than I don't see how they're going to do it.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, it's kind of
I-
an incomplete.
I think, if it were a wood gate or something, I would understand how wood hinges attached to wood, but with this metal, that is a little bit different. Yeah, maybe they could come back with just some
We
sort
gotta
of.
pull it out?
So
Sure, we
perhaps
could
we can
just post-
approve the design of the fence and
Sure.
then ask them to return with how they're going to install it.
Yeah.
Amenable?
Fine.
Okay. All right, we can do that.
With, I think, speaking for myself, I think I would love to see if they could put freestanding posts that they could, and not attach to
Sure.
the buildings themselves.
I am happy to take those comments back to the applicant, and we can clear that up.
Super.
Great.
All right. So that will bring us to item number 3, which is 126 State Street. The applicant for this project is seeking approval for the installation of a wall-mounted condenser. And as you can see, the property is pretty tight. However, they do have just enough clearance on the side. They are planning to, if I can get to the photo here, so they do have quite a long walkway, and the condenser is proposed to be sitting sort of in the corner at the entrance to 126 State Street. And you can kind of see a more clear photo of the location there. And they are proposing lots of photos, a wooden style screening for that, as it would be fairly visible from the public way. And do we have?
And they're
any-
taking it right into the basement.
That's correct, exactly right. Yep, so there won't be any
no big-
visible conduit lines running up the wall.
Super.
Yep.
Anybody else? My only comment on this,
Sure.
if possible, would be to put the brackets, is to put them, to anchor them in the mortar and not the bricks themselves, if possible.
Okay. I'm happy to stipulate that.
Yep.
Yep. And the last item that we have before us, for administrative approvals anyway, before us tonight is 422 Islington Street. We did actually review this just last week. It was for a full rear deck replacement and rear door replacement. After following our meeting, the applicant realized that the lead time for the 3-panel door that they were replacing was going to be about 16 weeks, whereas the same door in a 2-panel French style was going to be available within just about 4 weeks or so. So they've opted to come back for approval for that door to keep the project moving forward. And I will just pull the previously approved 3-panel door up, and I'll show you the proposed.
Oh, yeah, so it's just gonna look like a slider. It's just
Yeah.
gonna look like a regular
Can't see it anymore.
patio door.
So we have the 3-panel door here to replace the existing, and then, of course, it's the exact same door, just 2-panel.
Certainly much more in scale with the diminutive nature of the addition.
Okay, great. So I will just do a quick run through of those. Item number 1, 621 Islington Street was approved as presented. Item number 2, 195 Washington Street, we approved the design. We will have the applicant come back with their HVAC next month, and they can let us know about the installation process for the aluminum fence. Item number 3, 126 State Street, we do have one stipulation that they anchor the brackets for the condenser into the mortar and not the actual brick itself. And then item number 4, 422 Islington Street, approved as presented.
I'll make a motion to accept those as read by Isaac.
Second.
All right, now I do see Larry on, so
Larry has joined us.
we'll still do a quick roll call vote. So Dan,
Yes.
Margot,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Aye.
and then Larry. You're muted.
I'm pulling for you.
Uh-oh. Is he able to
I'll vote for
unmute?
him.
There you go. Proxy?
Yeah.
Got it.
There we go.
There we go.
Got it.
All right.
I approve. Thank you.
Okay. And chair votes aye, so thank you, Isaac, all of those.
Sorry about the Zoom issue, guys.
That's okay, we're glad you're here.
Zooming again.
All right, so next we have a certificate of approval extension request. It's the petition of Port Harbor Land LLC, owner for property located at 2 Russell Street and 0 Deer Street, 2 lots, wherein permission is requested to allow a second 1-year extension of the certificate of approval originally granted on August 10th, 2022, to allow the new construction of 3 new freestanding structures, 4 to 5-story mixed-use and office buildings, as per plans on file in the Planning Department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 124 as Lot 12, Map 118 as Lot 28, and Map 125 as Lot 21, and lies within the Character District 5, Downtown Overlay, and Historic Districts. So we have letters and paperwork. I don't know if anyone is here to talk about it. If anybody has any questions, it's not really a public hearing, but
Here
does
we
any?
go. We have somebody. Mr. Lyons.
Hi.
Hi, good evening, Chairman Rudig, members of the board. Isaac, how are you?
Good, how are you?
We've done already a lot of work. This is a relatively complex project, as I think you all know. We had
Sorry,
some...
can you, just for the record, can you introduce yourself?
I can indeed. That would help, wouldn't it? Attorney John Lyons, and I represent Port Harbor Land, and I have Ryan Plummer with me this evening from Port Harbor. We had some subdivision requirements that we needed to meet by June 15th. We did that. That included getting approval of a lot line plan through the city. That's been recorded. We are also required to actually convey 3 parcels to the city to redesign some of the intersections down there. Those deeds have been conveyed and recorded, so we have that done. We also have a number along, as Isaac knows, a long to-do list by December 15th as to issues related to the site plan approval. We're working on that closely with the city to get all of those items put together. There are some moving pieces to that. We're looking at a potential phasing plan and other items. So we're asking your kind indulgence to give us another one-year extension.
All right. Thank you. Any questions that anyone has?
I don't really have any questions. I would just say that, I thought this was a good project at the time, and my mind hasn't changed.
Great.
Thank you.
And I'll just clarify that obviously, any changes that have happened to the plan or to the design will come back to us once you've figured all of the little minutiae out.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, well, it seems pretty straightforward. We'll just call for a vote. I need a motion first, if I can call it for a motion.
Approve the one-year extension?
All right,
Seconded?
thank you. All right, I'm going to call for a vote. So Dan,
Aye.
Margo,
Yes.
John,
Aye.
David.
I voted against this application when it came before us, but I don't bear the commission any ill will, and so I will vote with the commission and to allow their extension.
Okay. And Larry.
Aye.
All right, and chair votes aye. So, thank you. All right. All right, so the first and only public hearing of the night is public hearing A, petition of Coventry LLC owner for property located at 111 State Street, wherein permission is requested to allow changes to a previously approved design, reconfigure rear gable ends to include a recessed porch and dormer, add new windows, change rear center gable siding, and changes to the front entrance doors, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 107 as Lot 20 and lies within the Character District 4 and Historic Districts.
Good evening, Tracy Kozak, Arcove Architects, here on behalf of the applicant. Thank you for having us back. We took your comments to heart at the June meeting and have made a number of revisions to our proposed design. Happy to take you through the drawing set. Existing conditions, the same as we reviewed last time, just to point out the area in the back. In the scope of work are those two yellow gables. Those were built in the 1990s. They're not particularly old, and we're keeping the one on the left, modifying the upper attic, and on the right, we would like to change that gable to a shed dormer. All right, and next. That is what it would look like from above. It's an axonometric view. We are also filling in that valley that was between the gables that will be concealed from view. It's behind the ridge. You can't see it, but that's where the mechanical equipment will go. Roof plan. On the front, that's the State Street side, and we are proposing on the bottom is the existing condition. It is a double door. It has glass. It's a 6-panel door, and the top 4 panels are glass. That's the existing condition. The other doors approved around the project are the same style. We would like to change that to a single door instead of a double door with side lights. Per recommendations and requests of comments last month, we changed the panels in the side lights to be solid wood painted. So the only glass is in that center door on the upper 4 panels. So that's request 1. And on the back, so we have a couple of changes from last time. We simplified the center gable balcony. Before, it had been more of an open balcony with an open picket rail. and posts on the corners. We've closed that in with a solid wood wall with clapboard siding. There is a shallow archtop window opening in which we would like to not actually put a window. There's a recessed room behind that, which will have a glass door. It's about 5 feet behind it. Otherwise, that's the same. There was a comment on the safety railing at the elevator overrun on the upper left of that picture, which would be set back at the flat roof area. We had previously shown kind of a OSHA compliant safety pipe rail, and we have changed that to a picket style. However, the pickets are spaced. They're 19 inches on center, which is OSHA for a safety railing. Again, this is not an occupied roof. It's only there for emergencies and occasional maintenance. The side view, so the side view is essentially the same as always, but you can see a little bit of the railing in elevation, not in perspective, but in elevation. That's the relationship. A close-up of that center gable. So this is the existing center gable. We are proposing to lift it a few feet higher than what it is right now, but it's the exact same shape and location and proportion. And that center window is open to a shallow recess behind it, which would be a small porch type of thing. It's all wood cladding, all wood trim, painted. And that's how it would look from Chapel Street. I just want to point out, so that gable we're changing to a shed is on the far right of the picture, behind that center gable. Currently, there's a gable there. So right now we are creating more sky and daylight and air, improving the view. There's less, the gable form, you can't see it from the street. And a straight-on perspective from across the street. And slightly to the west. And that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? John?
My first question is, why does this center gable form have to be 3 feet taller than the second floor on where the two dormers are? Why does it have to stand up so high?
So it's about 3 feet higher than it is right now. If we kept it where it is right now, we could only get a 4-foot door, and then we need a 6'8" door. It's just too low for someone to stand up. We're trying to have it be the same height as the occupied space to
Okay,
the left of it.
I can see your problem.
Yeah.
So what led me to ask that question is this, I guess it's a freeze board that you have all around this, quite deep, 12 inches maybe, sitting on top of the spindliest corner boards I've ever seen, looking at it directly. In my opinion, this thing is a mess as far as that goes. In my opinion, I think it would be better off without that freeze and with the corner boards being beefed up substantially to essentially look like any other structure that has that particular design. That freeze is awkward, doesn't line up with anything, and I don't think it's right. That's it for me.
Dan?
Is there really a big difference between the amount of roof between the two your two shed dormers, or is that an optical illusion?
So the shed dormer to the right is the new one. The one to the left was recently built per approved drawings a couple of years ago. The eave line of those dormers is the same elevation, but the front wall is in a different plane slightly. So that's why it looks like one is taller than the other, but it's just because the front wall is slightly forward on the one on the left, and it's if you look at the wall below each shed dormer, they're also not coplanar. The mass to the left of that center gable is quite a bit back from the mass to the right.
So the roof lines up, but the two
Yep, the wi-
facing walls don't.
Exactly. So, right, the roof.
one on the right's
the roof
recessed.
line is the same. The
Yeah.
window heights and the window dimensions are the same. It's just that the wall locations below them are out of plane because that's the existing footprint.
Why? Why?
Why is it, we're building on the existing footprint, which is an irregular shape. So that's the existing building. We're just,
Thank you.
yeah.
If I can interject something.
Yes, Larry.
I think there's a good picture of what everybody's talking about. Page H0.2, the top right-hand corner. If you take that picture and zoom it in to where, now I know the right-hand gable is going to disappear, but they're the same height, so the argument is here. If you zoom it in to where that right-hand gable abuts the roof, you can see that it is indeed a few feet shorter, and I think perhaps that's why she wants to raise it also, I think, so that the roof lines all line up. Am I correct on that?
We're aligning the roof lines so that it looks even and balanced, and also so that we have at least minimum head height everywhere. We are not, and the bottom of the roof is aligned around the building because that's the existing condition. It's just because of the walls going in and out that you have a slightly different skirt roof going around it.
Okay.
We didn't think it was really critical to have a perfectly symmetrical building. Part of the joy of Sheaf Street in Portsmouth are these little offsets and quirky corners and things that are not, perfectly rigidly symmetrical. So that we thought that gave some respect to the existing condition.
Any other questions? Ms. Marvel?
Yeah. Tracy, looking at this from the roof, you basically now have one really big building. And from the street, it works because you have lots of smaller buildings as the facades. They all came together. And it reminds me of the Popovers building, which is one really, really big building, but it doesn't look that way because Heinz broke it up. And the Sheaf Street side was working when you had the two gable ends because it broke up the mass on Sheaf Street. What you have here, to me, reads like a really, really big building on the Sheaf Street side. And I'm a little concerned of the effect that has on Sheaf Street. That this is, from that perspective, this is now looking like a pretty big building. The current conditions allowed for it to be broken up. And so I wonder if you could just speak to that.
Sure. So we're not changing the footprint or the massing. We did paint it all the same color, so I think that has an effect of people thinking it's all the same building. We could certainly paint each gable or each third of the building a different color to kind of break that up, but it is one building, so that seems a little disingenuous. But it's just paint, so if that helps, we can certainly look at that. As it is now with the two gables, the two little Siamese twin gables connected at the neck, it's kind of an odd condition that you really don't see all over Portsmouth to have identical gables. Again, it was built in the 90s. Not sure why. That's not the norm on Sheaf Street to see two gables stuck together like that. It's usually you see a gable and then there's a driveway and a gable and a driveway. So by creating the shed dormers on either side of the gable, it gives the relief to either side of the gable that you see up and down the rest of the street.
I guess it just doesn't look like a house to me. That I would never see a house built like this, or the side of a house look like this, or the front of a house look like this. So I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
But nobody else. I mean, I may be the only person who has an issue with it, and it's your design.
Yeah. So historically, this was a commercial building with residential above, just like everything around it. So it's, the vernacular on Sheaf Street and State Street are the connected townhouses and row buildings. There's a lot of carriage houses back on the back of Sheaf Street. It's kind of a little bit of a wishy-washy street on that side where you have the backs of garages and some decks, and it's not the rigid storefronts that you might see on State Street proper. So it's a bit eclectic back there already.
Any other questions?
Starting with the comment that one of the things that I think one of the challenges of this, and I do appreciate you toning this thing down and making it look less like a sport. But one of the challenges with this is it appears is the floor-to-floor height. On the second floor, the distance between the windows on the first floor and the windows on the second floor is enormous. I'm guessing that's because of your floor web thickness that's driving that. And that's hard to mask, and filling it in with clapboards just makes it seem even worse in terms of that massing. Not worse, but less like a residence. I don't think there's a single residence on Sheaf Street that has anywhere near the scale that this does when it comes to those floor-to-floor issues. So I'm sort of struggling with that. I'm also struggling, I think, as Mr. Wyckoff suggested, with we'll just call it the ornamentation of the pronounced gable end. Part of it, again, is the distance between the window on the second floor of the window or like structure on the third floor. It's enormous. It's not represented in the scale of the rest of the street or much of the city because we come from a simpler time. I'm having my version of heartburn over that. I'm also having a problem with the drawing and was H31. Can we look at that, sir? This will go quickly, I think, at this point. There. The left-hand-most side of this 3-unit structure that we're talking about, it's already there. It's been zip-sheathed. I was there today. The windows that you show on the second floor on this are 6/6s. They look to be based on something like an 8x10 light. The windows that are actually there are 6/3s that look like they're based on a 10-inch wide light. They're wider and shorter. And playing along with my previous comments, it seems to make the sidewall look even larger by having less of a window there, smaller window. And the next question that coming up is, are you building that or are you building the thing that's there now?
I will have to go by and
You want to
see
look
if
at
there's
my
a difference.
picture that I took
know
today?
that
or-
way back, a long time ago, we changed all the third floor windows from 6/6 to 6/3, and that is what the drawings show, because there was an
Well, that isn't what
existing-
this drawing that you're presenting this evening shows.
So on State Street and Chapel Street, they're 6/3.
Third floor windows in this.
Are
are
6/3s.
6/3. Yeah, they're showing 6/3. It's the unequal sash, so it's a 6-light sash on top of a 3-light sash. Yeah, that's what we're showing. Is that not what is installed? Because the existing windows in the dormers on State Street are in fact 6/3. So our original application, like 2 years ago, had 6/6, and we were asked to change it to 6/3. So we just kept that consistent.
Who, if you don't mind, who asked you to do that?
That was a long time ago. This project's been going for a while.
I don't remember.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
So, wait, Mr. Adams, so which windows are not,
Would you mind just passing that over?
here, I'm confused as to which, like, is it the second floor?
Yeah, pass it over.
there. The second floor windows are squat, little 6 over
6/3s.
And ultimately, they seem to exacerbate the two complaints
Yeah.
that were observations that were made of
Yeah.
scale and siding and,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah, you might want to check on that.
Okay, good to
Wanna
know.
see this?
We'll check on that.
she'll see it tomorrow.
She'll see it tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's right here.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Adams, for having your eye on all the details. Any other questions or issues? I don't think, I don't necessarily have any other questions, although I do wonder if something about that middle gable can be done to make that frieze a little bit less prominent. And I see how on the, if you go up one, I see how on the side gable of the historic building that works, but it's like
Yeah, that's why it's there.
squashed. Yeah.
What I would like to propose is, well, I mean, it's there to mirror the other gables that's there, but we can get rid of it. And if we do, I would recommend that we lower that attic window opening, maybe a foot, and then perhaps we can add a shadow board underneath that rake, that gable rake, like you see on the left, and that helps reduce the amount of clapboard under it, and that would compensate for losing that horizontal
Yeah.
band.
I think that would probably help.
So I'm not quite understanding.
So,
Can you explain it to me?
so
The horizontal,
take away the freeze board,
yes,
the horizontal freeze board.
and on the
Add-
sides too, the little
Yes,
sides.
yes. And under the raking eaves,
Yes.
add the fascia freeze board there.
Yes, that should be a freeze board.
Right. And lower that window opening, that sort of,
What about making the corner boards a little more substantial under,
Yep. I think right now those are shown as 4-inch. We could go up to 6 or 8-inch
4
wider.
inches? You don't even put 4-inch corner boards on a garage now.
well, is that the existing condition of the historic? building? I
Yeah,
mean-
that's matching what's there. Again, it was built in the 90s, so.
Right, it's not
Some
historic,
people
historic,
are used to seeing that, though, now. It's been there for a while. So,
Yeah.
But we can make it whatever size you
I
like.
mean, I think from the comments that we've heard around here, making, varying it up a little bit might help kind of break up the building, and it wouldn't be totally disingenuous because this is new construction and that's 90s, and, you can kind of break it up a little bit into its own time periods. I don't know. That's just a suggestion. So, yes, John?
I mean, I suggest that there are some details here that she needs to work out. We just can't say, well, let's get rid of this horizontal freeze board and let's.
Right. No,
you know.
that'll have to come back, for sure.
So, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, and I think that we can probably move forward with the general and I don't know what your timeline is.
If it's
I
just
don't
a
know.
trim detail, we'd be
Yeah.
happy to come back for the trim if you can
Yes.
approve the form.
Yeah,
That would be
I don't
great.
know, yeah, I don't want to push this whole thing over another month, but, okay, great. Let me open it to the public for any comment.
Good evening. My name is Tom Irwin. I live at 28 Chapel Street. Madam Chair, I do have some written comments signed by several people in the neighborhood,
Okay.
if I could.
Sure. I'm just, oh, that's plenty.
Yes, plenty, thank you.
I know you can all read the letter, so I'm loath to do this, but since I understand you might be voting, at least on the form tonight, I would like to read it into the record to ensure that you get the full gist of this. So if you'll indulge me, I'd appreciate it. As owners of residential properties in close proximity to 111 State Street, who care greatly about the historical value and character of Sheaf Street and the surrounding neighborhood, we write to express our concerns about certain elements of Coventry LLC's proposed modifications to the building located at the above referenced address as part of a larger project that includes modification and reconstruction of buildings at both 107 and 111 State Street. As discussed below, while we appreciate and largely support the applicant's most recent proposed design modifications to the northeasterly gable at 111 State Street, and by northeasterly, we're referring to the one that appears on the left from Sheaf Street. While we appreciate and largely support the applicant's most recent proposed design modifications to the northeasterly gable, the applicant's proposal to increase the height of that gable and convert the building's southwesterly gable to a shed dormer would result in a mass and design grossly inconsistent with the applicant's existing structures and with the building's and sense of place on Sheaf Street and the surrounding area. We strongly object to that proposed change. So in terms of a brief overview, the buildings located at 107 and 111 State Street, abutting Sheaf Street, which is a mixed-use neighborhood characterized by residences and small shops in historic buildings located in close proximity to one another on a narrow one-lane street that accentuates the historic and neighborhood character of the area. The building located at 111 State Street includes two gables that are consistent with and enhance the historic character, scale, and sense of place of the Sheaf Street neighborhood. The applicant proposes to increase the elevation of and modify the northeasterly gable, which, according to the applicant's plans, would be adjoined by two new shed dormers that significantly increase the mass of the building. And perhaps the better term there is scale. Of great concern, the applicant proposes to eliminate the southwesterly gable and convert it into one of the above-mentioned shed dormers that would adjoin the northeasterly gable. So in terms of the design modifications to the northeasterly gable, the one on the left, at the Commission's hearing on June 5th, the applicants proposed changes to the northeasterly gable that included the installation of a deck and associated design elements. As a result of concerns expressed by residents and commissioners, the applicant has further modified its proposed design of this gable, including the elimination of the previously proposed deck and associated design elements. With one exception, we appreciate and support these design modifications, which are in keeping with the character of the existing structure and the historic designs and style of other buildings on Sheaf Street. The one exception to our support of these design modifications is the proposed redesign of the single window located near the apex of the gable. The design of that window is not consistent with the historic nature of the building and surrounding neighborhood and should be redesigned to achieve consistency. I'm going to go off script for a minute speaking for myself. I'm very confused about the concept of a porch being located here. I guess I have questions about what that means. Is it an internal porch? It's clearly driving the design of that window, and I'm confused as to what's going on in that space. So shifting to the elevation change of the northeasterly gable and the conversion of the southwesterly gable, the gable on the right, to a shed dormer. The applicant's proposal to increase the elevation of the northeasterly gable and to construct a shed dormer in place of the existing southwesterly gable represents a dramatic alteration to 111 State Street. We urge the Commission to reject these elements of the project and require the project to retain the gables in their current configuration. Among its important purposes and objectives, the Commission serves a critically important role in maintaining the special character of the district as reflected in the scale, mass, location, and style of buildings, and encouraging designs for new buildings and structures, additions to buildings and structures, and the reuse of existing buildings and structures that complement and enhance the city's architectural and historic character and contribute to its sense of place. The applicant's proposal to increase the elevation of the northeasterly gable and replace the southwesterly gable with a shed dormer will result in a building that is inconsistent with the scale, mass, and style of the existing building and of the Sheaf Street neighborhood, and will greatly undermine the Sheaf Street neighborhood's sense of place. Accordingly, the Commission should deny the applicant's request to increase the elevation of the northeasterly gable and to replace the southwesterly dormer, which is consistent with the scale, mass, and style of the Sheaf Street neighborhood, with a proposed shed dormer. Along with these comments, we've provided some photographs depicting the architectural and historic character and sense of place of Sheaf Street as it exists. We believe these images, coupled with the plans submitted by the applicant, provide sufficient basis for the Commission to deny the applicant's requested modifications to these gables. If, however, the Commission disagrees and is inclined to vote in support of these modifications, we request that it first exercise its authority to conduct a site visit and view this building in the context of Sheaf Street in person before rendering a decision. The list of signers includes Sandell Morse, 29 Chapel Street, who's here today, Jan and Peter Howe, also 29 Chapel Street, myself, my wife, Lauren Irwin, 28 Chapel Street, and Ken Kozik, 29 Sheaf Street. I have nothing further, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak to this?
Good evening. I'm Sandell Morse, and I live at 29 Chapel Street, and I'm one of the contributors to that letter. We all got together, and we have been going back and forth, and we've been putting a lot of time into this. And I would like to say that I would really encourage you to come down and take a look. That building is massive. And with these proposed changes, it will be even more massive. And I kind of am thinking, I was looking at all of these different renderings, and I'm thinking, the whole thing is kind of like the elephant in the room. But what you see when you get these photographs of the design and you get the different angles, those are done on purpose. So it's kind of like, well, you put your hand here and it looks like that, feels like that. You put your hand here, feels like that. But if you look at the whole thing, I think you'll get a very different kind of feel for what that building is becoming. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else in the public wanting to speak? I don't know if Tracy wants to respond to any of the questions that were in there. Okay. All right. Anyone in the public? Yes.
I do have someone. Mr. Howe, you are able to speak when you're ready. Just make sure you unmute yourself.
You're very faint.
Could you maybe try to get a little bit closer to your microphone?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you.
Right. All right. My having signed the letter and having heard the comments, the question that I am wondering is, what is the precedent for the change that she is looking for, that the architects propose in this kind of a structure, knowing that you as a commission look to precedent as for ways in which in other locations, in other words, a dormer, where would we find another dormer like that? I don't think along Sheaf Street we have that character. The two gable ends seem to reflect the character of the street, although, as pointed out, this isn't separated by a driveway. and that's my comment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Larry, I realize I didn't specifically ask if you had any more questions or comments, unless you want to just comment when we have a motion.
Well,
Yeah.
trying to remember which building it's Strawberry Bank. And if we go back to one of the H0.2, if you look at that sheet and you start going from left to right, and this, I think, supports Margot's thing that it just looks so big. And it's not just the fact that it's all the same color, that the roof lines have changed. But if you go back to H0.2 and you go from left to right, even though two of them have, outside sheathing on, it looks like four separate houses. 1, 2, and then the two gables, 3, 4. And by the time you get done adding these shed dormers, I agree, with what Margot and other fellow commissioners have said. It looks like one giant house. And I couldn't remember the name of it. I had to think about it for a little bit. But the Sherborne House at Strawberry Bank has these identical gables. And I think that's why it works in my mind in the existing form is there actually is a house in Portsmouth with these identical gable flats, and it's the Sherborne House at Strawberry Bank. It's preserved. So I think I would really hate to see the two gables go away. I think there's I think that's what breaks it up to make it look like separate buildings, even if from the drone view from above, it is all one building.
Okay. All right, thanks. Any other comments from the public or anybody before we close the public hearing? All right. Closing the public hearing, and let's have a motion so that we can move forward somehow.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve this as presented with the stipulation that the trim on the gable form in the middle be altered and be brought back to us for approval. I think that's the stipulation. Is there any stipulation about windows? I don't know.
No, that's the previous approval, so that's got to go.
Okay, that's previous approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
I'd humbly like to say I thank you very much for the people that have done all this work from Chapel Street and Sheaf Street and such. I would humbly disagree with them. The form that is there currently with the double gables, very awkward, probably shouldn't have been built, but it was. This is replacing that and correcting it. The dormer on the southwest side that some people object to me, really cleans up the building quite a bit. I'm a symmetrical sort of person, and I'm looking at it and thinking, oh, this is, it's symmetrical. But I feel that, yes, it is a large building on the back side. It is currently large, and this isn't really changing the overall size of the building. So with that all in mind, I just wanted to, get that out. I think it's consistent with the defining characters of the surrounding properties, the single gable form, and specifically, and compatibility of design with surrounding properties. So for that reason, I approve of it.
Isaac, I don't know if you could answer this, or maybe Tracy, but do we know the distance from the porch, to the end of the this building compared to the brick building next door? This looks big at times, but then if you look at some of the pictures submitted tonight, the building next door with its big porch and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 windows looks a good size too. Is there a way that we could get a measurement on those two?
Reagan,
Yes.
it's past that point
Yeah.
of discussion at this time.
I think I think we kind of need to talk to the motion now. So we're kind of past the question answer
Just
section.
voting.
You can give your thoughts and opinion on how you're voting.
Well, I think the question of mass has been brought up, and I would love to know size of one versus the size of the other. That's all.
Okay. Margot?
So I can't support this. The context of Sheaf Street, the street has a whole bunch of gable end buildings. I expect that that's what they were thinking in the 1990s when they put these twin gables in. I don't think it's particularly successful, but I don't think that it should be replaced with something that looks like this. Adding in the left-hand shed dormer made this look to me as if the people who owned either the historic home or the people who owned the gable end homes were trying to gain a little extra space, and they were filling in a corner, and that worked for me. But now you're taking what appears to be the backside of, or the end of two smaller buildings, and you're turning it into one space that runs from the corner at Chapel Street all the way back to the end of the building. And it has no front door. It has no side to it. It's one huge side, but you can't identify where the building starts. Neither does it, to me, look like the back of the building on State Street. And the buildings that you're talking about, Dan, are, they're set back, they're smaller, they're actually broken up into smaller units and smaller buildings. So I just this doesn't read to me in any way like either a residence or a commercial building, and I think it really should be a residence on Sheaf Street. It just looks like a wall that has no beginning, end, middle. Well, it has a middle. I'll give it that. So I can't support this.
Anyone else? David?
Madam Chairman, thank you very much. I think I understand. Well, it doesn't matter whether I can or not. I'm not going to be able to support this motion for this design that's before us this evening. I have, I think, three elements that really strike me. One is the extension of the gable, the single gable format, gable to the street, when we have others within stone's throw of this that don't reflect the scale of that at all. And members of this commission this evening have commented on the difficulty that the architect has demonstrated in trying to flesh that out. I'm particularly sensitive to the expanses of clapboard that we see. I think this has all been grown out of scale. These are recognizable elements. Yes, there are shed dormers and gable dormers all over town, all built for the same kinds of reasons, the real economics of every day. But this has been, using those forms has been extended. This is like putting a puppy's paws on a full-size dog. It's grown out of scale. They're understandable pieces in the wrong scale. There's a continued problem for me of the fenestration. The dormers have more windows in them than the sidewall below them. There's usually in quotes, a support for windows, that we have 4 windows on the first floor and a door. On a typical Georgian house, we have 5 windows on the second floor, 4 over the others and 1 over the door. When we have what I consider well-designed buildings, we have a couple of gable dormers on the roof of it. Those gable dormers will frequently appear directly over windows below, or sometimes balancing the pairs. but there's usually a rhythm to it. I don't feel that rhythm here at all. I've got no rhythm. Unlike someone that plays bass. Anyway, I think that, so the expanses of siding, the elevation and enlargement of the gable, and the lack of a common fenestration all put this into another realm altogether. Yes, it's a mixed-use neighborhood, and it has been for a couple of 100 years, but no one's ever done anything the size of this there, and it shows. So I'm going to withdraw, I'm not going to have any support for this. Thank you.
Larry, we've heard some of your comments. I just didn't know if you needed to give any more.
Me?
Yes, for your vote.
Yeah. While Margot and Dave were talking, I actually took a quick look at Sherburne there at Strawberry Bank, and it does have virtually identical twin gables, and the roof line actually fills in between. I'm going to hang my hat on my initial statement that I would really hate to see the twin gables disappear. I think if, the designer's goals are to gain more space up there on that third floor, then perhaps, I don't know if you call it a shed dormer or what, but, back there at the back of the roof line, at least they could, connect the two gables there. But I would really hate to see the twin gables disappear, because I think that makes it look like a standalone house in its own right, and that gets rid of the massing issues. So I'm going to go along with Margot and Dave and say that I couldn't support it in its present form.
Thank you. All right, well, I'm looking around, and we don't have many people here, and it could end up being sort of a split vote. I'm not, well, I can give my...
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Well, I'm wondering why we just don't vote.
Well, I'm still a little bit torn on this project as well. It keeps kind of growing, and the expansions sort of move around the building, which makes it difficult, I think, for us to get a complete good design and grasp of. However, I understand that this is the back of the building, and the two buildings here, the twin gables, as we're calling them, were built in 1990, not 1690, like the Sherburne house. But it is is still a commonly seen sort of form around town, is this sort of gables stacked up like this. So it's not necessarily that these two gables are sacred to this street, but it is a little bit more in line with the street, as it is a broken up sense of massing rather than one big giant building, which, to be fair, is one big giant building. And I'm also not one to really promote the use of fake facades to break something up. So as you can tell, I'm a little bit caught up on this too, and I wanted to know, before we go for a vote, whether or not the applicant would like us to go forward with a vote, or like us to continue so that there's an option to maybe address some of the concerns that are most of us seem to have here. Because we're happy to continue.
I could
if you'd like.
withdraw.
If the consensus is that the west gable is sacred, we can certainly look to keep it. We felt it was a mistake in the 90s, and we wanted to correct it. But if that is a historic treasure, we can keep that and work with that. It's not going to change the size of the building. The footprint isn't changing. The massing is getting smaller by what we're doing. We'll keep it there. It blocks skylight. That's fine. We thought we were making it smaller. We'll keep it. We can work with that. We would like to have the opportunity to, well, they will connect in the back because that's already been approved. So I don't know. I don't understand how this is a defining character of She Street when it's a brand new addition that is not in keeping with what's there. But if we would have to design it. I don't know that you can continue this, or would we reapply, or?
We would, John could withdraw his motion.
Yes, I
And
would
we
like to
could-
withdraw my motion.
Okay.
And whoever
Are
seconded.
you okay with
Yes.
that? So
Do you want me to
I could
second?
also, so I could get another motion to continue it.
Madam Chair, I'd like to continue this to the next meeting.
Seconded?
All right, and thank you. That gives you an opportunity to take some of all the comments we've had, and use your creativity to figure something out.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, I have to do a roll call, excuse me.
Excuse me?
So, all right, so
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Margot,
Yes.
John, David,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
all right, and chair votes aye. Thank you. All right. Am I supposed to gavel when we get to vote? Just for certain things?
Sounds better.
Okay, all right.
Sounds more official.
Our last
State Street.
item on the agenda is a work session requested by 96 State Street LLC, owner for property located at 96 State Street. Grant permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure, construct a two-story addition at the rear corner of the structure facing Atkinson Street, and construct a two-story addition facing State Street, as per plans on file in the Planning Department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 107 as Lot 52 and lies within the Character District 4 and Historic Districts. Go down to the table. Sorry, I'm trying not to cough on you.
Oh, thank you, appreciate it.
Dan, you dropped your towel. What have you been to the pool?
No, I'm having some troubles with my medicines.
Wait until 8:45? Anyways. Great. All right. So, please
Yeah, I'm
introduce yourself. and-
Brandon Holben with Winter Holben Architecture and Design, and we're here for 96 State Street, known as Domo, and we're working on responding to some of the feedback from last month with the massing, and still trying to get some addition, but we've subtracted quite a bit, and really trying to reduce the visibility of the additions from the public way as much as possible.
I'm getting over it. It's okay.
That's what everybody says.
No, it was bad, but I'm okay. Excuse me.
So yeah, everyone, the site context, everyone's quite familiar with it. Again, we've got a series of existing plans and elevations in here showing there was additions done back in a dozen years ago or so. And the first floor completely surrounds the building, and then the second and third floors sort of step back a bit. And the owner is trying to create, it's actually workforce housing for staff, is what she's trying to do with the apartments above. So they're not luxury housing units, so it's something a little different. And she's trying to get a little more space up there to
Is
be
it
able to
still
accommodate.
commercial on the first floor? Still a
First and
restaurant?
second, yeah. Even the second floor is assembly right now, because she has an elevator but they don't use the second floor. That was back when it was Common Man. They built it out that way. And then I think the third floor is currently business as it's owned. So, with some direction here, and then she would go through and rezone and all that good stuff. Moving along. So the existing elevations, you can see. We sort of dashed in the house next door on page 8. You can kind of just see the proximity, just the general location of that front gable and where that ridge aligns with, which is right about in the middle of the two windows of the federal style house. Design precedent. So again, we'll get into this more, but we've started to apply some of these ideas to the options you'll see here. But yeah, again, we have one that's very simple and just kind of continues the simple addition vernacular that's there. And the goal is to something that's sort of built up over time and kind of added to the story of the building. That's sort of the goal with what we're trying to do. And then the second option you'll see will have a little more detail, a little more texture, pattern, scale with some of the raised paneling details. Moving along to concept one on page 11. So again, this is the one. This is kind of continuing the similar material use, simple detailing. You can see from the State Street elevation here to the north, we kind of pushed that in quite a bit. The second floor and then the third floor pushes in even more. And then what we're doing with these kind of new hip forms, there's sort of these smaller hip elements that balance between the two chimneys, and similar on the east elevation.
That's bringing the front closer. The front of the.
Yeah. So it comes. So the second floor comes to just about the ridge of the smaller building, kind of the center of the windows. And then the third floor is set back a bit more, a few feet more than that, and that's that gable form sort of centers between the chimneys of the original federal building. So in terms of location, we've been thinking about it, where those points are and how they set relative to the historic structure. And on the back, we really push this in, taking into some of the worries about the view from the house next door, and really, you'll see on some of the perspectives, we pushed it back. We exposed more of the historic building on both sides, and then you'll see from the street perspective, it really sets back to the corner of the street. You really don't even see them until you're walking down the street. So we went through some efforts there. They lost some area, but it's worthwhile. I think you'll see that view on page 13 from the corner of State and Atkinson, where you just sort of get a glimpse of the State Street corner, and then the Atkinson it's pushed back even further. So you're
Could I ask a question for clarification?
Yes.
So on page 13, on the left-hand picture, essentially the areas that have the black roof, I know that, the black roof is also over the original structure, but the other two black roofs, they're the new additions?
Oh, yeah. So, right.
And
so
the gray roof that's on the back?
The light gray are existing.
That's existing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Flat membrane roof up there.
Thank you.
And it ties in. It's actually slightly above the existing fascia of the historic house, the way that was built. Yeah. It popped up like,
wow.
They must have just, and there's very low headroom in there, so they must have been building it, and they just already creeped that up on the original. So that was one of the other things we're trying to do, is we're sort of concealing that condition with these hip forms that come out. We're trying to conceal
Sure,
that.
because the third floor height on these buildings is typically not very great.
It's not at all. And there is some high ceiling height in the existing building, which is really nice, and she's looking to expose some of that, some of the heavy timbers up there, which will be a nice touch. But that's sort of what those two hip forms do, is they really conceal the flat roof, and from the public way, you're really just seeing the low slope hip form now, which lines up nicely with the, we can even bring it down a little lower, I think.
Can I jump in at this point and say that I think you caught on, or you understand that we're looking at this as a freestanding building, that it's not part of a row or a group of continuous other buildings like many of the other brick buildings in our downtown. And pulling these pieces back as you have seems to be respecting that. So I'm sort of following along. This is better than the last time we looked at it. That's what I think. But I do have a problem immediately with the gable of Karen's little cape. What happens to that? She's got a window there, which I would guess predates the construction of this building.
The window was just added.
It was
not permitted. And
not permitted
on the property line.
Oh, Karen!
That's so the owner. That was part of her reasoning. She didn't with turning this to residential. She didn't want people to be able to see in. So part of it was trying to conceal that, and she's worried about someone being able to come out and onto that roof. So
Well, it's something,
she said the window was added.
something to look at.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's-
That really clears that whole mess up.
Again, yeah, there was
Oh,
nothing,
but-
nothing on file that
Yeah.
was.
All right, thank
had
you.
been there. Yeah, so part of that, the goal was to conceal that from. She feels like it was a security issue. Somebody can get across onto this through this window.
Sure.
Yeah. As well as it's a fire separation issue having the glass there. That's not fire rated, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, that's something for them to work out.
Yes. Yeah. So the
Jason?
location of that, we were, we were trying to push it back even further. Her goal was to keep that. So that second floor we kept
Yes.
right where she wanted it, and then we pushed the third floor back even more.
Okay.
Interesting.
So that's So first option, you can see, very simple vernacular with the materials. Sort of breaking it up with these simple boxes, kind of added. Working on the symmetry of the fenestration. We have kind of a pair of doors with split windows above it. Stacking up on the State Street sides, we have a door to the left side and the window to the right, and those are stacked with the triple windows down street level. The edges, kind of the outside edges aligning, going up. And then you get into concept 2, similar, but we start to add some patterns to the second floor. We start to add a little more of the texture and pattern of the paneling, raised paneling detail. And then keeping the third floor the simple material. As you come to the east side, you'll see we started to look at it differently, where the kind of created a vertical element there under the hip, which we thought was working nicely, and then just clapboarding the side piece of that. So it just kind of gave you a different feel for that. The addition on the Atkinson side, and you'll sort of see as we get to page 18. And you look at that proposed, you can sort of see that taller stacked form under the hip. So it kind of creates almost like an element, like a hip L off of the federal building, which you might have seen at some point. So there was something interesting there that we were liking with the paneling, and then the clapboard elements added on as part of the story. The building. And then same thing, State Street side, we did the paneling detail in the second, and then went back to continuing the clapboard on the upper. And then roof form, same on both options. Mostly just material changes between the two.
To me, the paneling effect that you're doing makes more sense on State Street, where we have that wooden first floor structure. But I think, well, I'm not warmed to it, or the piece that we see from Atkinson. Let's see, if I were trying to carry something across the face of that third story piece that you've just bumped on in this drawing, I would do it at the eaves edge of the two-story unit. That would be my. It does not identify the windows the same way, but that's I think that's a down the road detail.
Yeah.
I totally agree. That's exactly what I was thinking, that it's more successful on the State Street side than it is on Atkinson.
Okay.
It's almost like, number 1 is better on Atkinson, and number 2 is better. I don't know. That's what I was thinking.
Not to control the conversation, but I also find myself warming to the piping horizontal rails of your whatever barriers.
Okay.
Because it's a very contemporary look, and it doesn't introduce a bunch of phony colony design stuff that just doesn't really hold up.
That's your word, Reagan, phony colony.
I learned it in grad school. It's a proper term. All right. Is there any more you want to go through, or do you want more comments?
Yeah, no, that's it. And on the you'll see in the section detail on page 19, we're struggling a little bit there. I just wanted some feedback. We had thought about making that real, if we went with the symmetrical hip there, we'd have to sort of extend that flat roof out further to pick that up, versus it was kind of out of sight, so kind of throwing that off angle hip, where we sort of stretched it over to that existing form there, but we just did want to keep it centered on that form. So the ridge location was important here, right? We kept that center, we kept the center between the chimneys, but it was whether we actually mirrored the slope on each side of that hip to make it a true hip, and then connected with the flat roof, right? I think it's not that visible either way.
No one is ever going to see that.
I don't think so.
This was like more.
I think you've done a service by identifying the hip and matching the plane of the roof where there is a chance that someone will actually see it.
Yes.
I mean,
Agreed.
Yeah, that was the last question.
Any other thoughts here?
Unfortunately, I appreciate that you've pulled some back here, but I still can't support subsuming any more of this building with more stuff hanging off of it. It's such a graceful, lovely building in its place, and I just can't support it. I appreciate that the owner is trying to put in workforce housing. What one person builds, another person doesn't always continue.
Yeah.
So we can't really make our decision based on that. If I were the owner, I would take all the money that they would sink into building this and buy a lot of bus passes and subsidize rent in another place. I think you could probably do that for 10, 15 years for the cost of building
Travel
this.
time cuts down on your working hours.
Really?
also that sense of ownership of the employee will be lacking.
Can I?
I feel badly for the employee who finds themselves out of housing because somehow they're no longer employed there. So, but that is a completely different subject.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
still cannot support hanging more stuff off of this building.
Larry, do I hear you?
Yeah, I was trying to interject something there, and I know it
Yeah,
probably
we can't. Suddenly, we can't hear you very well.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is that better? Okay, thank you. I'm going to kind of agree with what Margot said, but I'm going to add something to it. If we can go back to page 9, please, which is the design precedents. Okay. One of the things that was mentioned about 10 minutes ago was the window there on the Cape. Now, I realize probably part of this design goal was for the person on floor number 2 and floor number 3 to have their own little porch area. But permit me to say this. If you could take that structure in the lower left-hand corner on the design precedents and put that up on top of the little black section, between the Federal and the Cape, only push it back where you still preserve the window on the Cape, you're going to end up with what looks like, because that roof line, you're going to end up with what looks like a separate building, a separate 3-floor, townhouse, row house, or whatever, with the second and third floors set back. So the guy would have similar windows on the second floor as what you had on the first floor. You'd have a third floor with 2 windows in it, and you'd have a roof, instead of trying to make it blend with the hip, which I think creates the sense of even more massing. It would be a roof at a different angle, so it would look like a standalone building, I think. And I'm just going to throw that out there. Perhaps that would alleviate the problem concerning the owner of the Cape losing her window, and also alleviate the massing problem. And still, you've got 3 floors with the roof at a different angle, so it looks like a separate building. That's all I was going to throw in, and that's just like an addendum, I think, to what Margot was saying, that the massing issue. You get the floors, but it doesn't feel as massive.
All right. Thanks, Larry. Dan, did you have any comments?
I feel a little bit as Margaret says, it's hard to keep adding something to every building in town. Yet we need, we need it, certainly the space, and we need the housing. So it's a tough one.
I'll just add that I think that I think that sort of the better combination is, like the concept 1 on Atkinson Street and concept 2 on State Street. I agree with all that. Part of me kind of wants to see almost no balconies on State Street if we really want to be conservative about, preserving the look of that federal building. You would just kind of have just windows. But at the same time, I respect that these are all modern additions, and they are going to be separate and
Siding and all of that.
yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to stand apart as not a historic piece of this building. It is hard to see more of this being swallowed up, but at the same time, I do think that you have done a great job with pulling it back so that the original building is still very visible. I'm curious, this has nothing to do with, it's not in our purview, but I'm curious as to whether or not any of the exterior brick walls are going to kind of remain on the interior, or if they're going to have to be totally blown out.
No, the size these are now, they're good sized rooms, so I think they would use those windows as doors, whether they had to widen, like this one.
Yeah.
That might just be wide enough to get a door in, so you would access through there or through here, right? So I think they would mostly remain. That's really just a room. This is a room, just access through there.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I think it would, obviously, people love having,
exposed on both
exposed
sides,
brick on the inside and stuff like that.
Yeah, you can leave the lintel and actually see some of that.
Yeah, which will at least preserve some of the story.
Yeah, and I think just from a cost standpoint, that's the more economical way to do it, right? So they're not putting in big headers everywhere.
No, I mean, I appreciate all the thought and care that you guys have put into this, and I do think the massing and the roofing and all of those considerations works well. Like we said, it's not, nobody's going to see it, but the hip certainly complements the existing roof, and
I think walking down Chapel Street, you'll get a glimpse of the little hip here, things like that. Far enough away.
But that's not what people are going to really be looking for. So, no, I mean, I don't know that there's anything else to really. It's all fairly positive for those
I think you're supposed to ask
who
if
can
there's anybody in
stomach
the
it.
public that wants to speak.
I'm just making sure that I'm not wrapping up the whole thing yet. Don't worry. So, yes, is there anyone from the public? Obviously, no one is in the room, but maybe there's somebody online who would like to speak to this.
Peter Howe still has his hand raised, but I believe that was probably for the previous application. Peter, if you are still on, okay, he unraised his hand.
Okay.
So, okay, great. No one to speak to this.
All right, great. Well, then we will. Would you like us to move to continue, or would you like to come back for the public hearing?
Yeah, I think with some revisions, we can come back for a public hearing.
Okay. All right, then I need a motion to close the public hearing, or to close the work session.
Second?
All right. Roll call vote. Dan?
Yes.
Margot?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
All right, the chair votes aye. So,
Great, thank you.
thank you. All right. And that concludes our very heavy agenda for tonight. Is there anything anybody else wants to talk about?
Well, I sent everyone what I found in 2009. I hope you all, got it.
For which project?
For 127 Gate Street. Did you get anything?
I don't think I did.
I know I got it. I'm not sure. I can't remember if I saw the CC to everyone else or what have you.
Did anyone else get? No?
Yeah, sorry, John.
Well,
Yeah, I don't have
just
it.
to make a long story.
Sorry, Larry, did you get it or no?
I'm just double checking, went back into the email and refreshed, and no, I don't have it, so
I did,
it may
you
not
know,
have
I
gotten.
did at the end of the message, I asked you to forward it to the message. Anyways, in that meeting, the applicant was asking for aluminum gutter. Okay, she had wooden gutters and had exactly the same story in 2009 about the clapboards being damaged and all that sort of thing. The only one amongst us who had some reservation, who missed the wooden gutter, was Mr. Almeida. But the rest of us, we voted to allow the aluminum gutter and an aluminum downspout, and we asked her to enclose the aluminum downspout with a three-sided wooden box, essentially, just put it on there. And that was because at the time, and I'm not even sure, I think at the time I went down Gate Street and kind of counted the amount of aluminum downspouts versus the wooden ones, and you know, that was the thing at the time. I'm not sure if it still is. Is it, David? Do people still have wooden downspouts now?
Very few.
Yeah, they just don't work. But it was something that people thought was historic. So anyways, she got her approval for the wood, for the aluminum. And there was no ask or approval on our end for copper on the back. That's simply, I don't know where that came from. So I wanted to bring that up, the fact that we, you know, gave her that approval back then. Because it seemed to me that we were getting a little pushback that the HTC has done this. And then after the whole State Street thing, the meeting that we had, and what we're seeing today on State Street, it just feels like that our side is not getting out on the projects, on, you know, and so this is the second project in 1 week. So it just seems that you know, it's not getting out the fact that we did approve his project twice. You know, gave him an extension to build his project, but they're using us, the HTC, as an excuse because simply put, there were other problems with the project as far as they don't have the electrical service. That's the biggest problem right there, something that's not going to go away. So that's what I want to discuss. If anybody else would want to chip in, but I just want to get it out there.
Well, I think that it's warranted. The HTC is often a controversial board in any town, in any city. But I do know that there are plenty of other organizations in town that would love to work with us and be in sort of an advocacy role for preservation. The Arts and Cultural Committee, that is this new city committee, the Portsmouth Historical Society has really just kind of added an advocacy part to their organization. So I think that we can try to work with a lot of these other groups in town to have some sort of some positive representation for what we try to do.
Yeah, but it just kind of looks like we're the ones responsible for a chain link fence being in the middle of State Street. And there is.
A lane taken away.
Yeah, no.
Can I?
Sure, Larry.
I think what you both said is true. You know, to somebody who is from out of town, if they just picked up the Seacoast Online article and read it, I would agree entirely with what John said, and yet I also agree with what you said, you know, Madam Chair. And I think it goes back to the person writing the article isn't due diligence. If they take what you know, somebody says verbatim about the HDC, then they should at least, through due diligence, all fairness, you know, look comment from the HDC instead of just saying, oh, it's the HDC's fault. And I think the same thing is reflected, was it 1 or 2 meetings ago, approval of the doorway for the North. A day or two prior to the meeting, there was an article, will the HDC once? Well, we did. But then there was never a follow-on article to say, oh, well, the North Church got everything they asked for. So I not due diligence on the part of Seacoast Online, and I don't know what to do about that. But I agree with both of you 100%.
There's not a whole lot we can do about that. But, yeah, I don't want to get into too much of a big public discussion of the trials and tribulations of the HCC, but I know that we all work hard and are passionate about what we do and are just trying to all do the right thing. So I appreciate all of your time and work on this commission.
Okay. I think the squeaky
Well-
wheel when writing letters is what we're saying, but I also see considerable support in your neighborhoods for what we're doing, for both solar and things like that.
We should have a public relations arm.
Right.
Or
It should be you.
no, it cannot be me. I am my poster. Someone.
Margaret.
A weekly or a monthly article for the paper, or even a heavy editorial by someone that was good with the pen, that had, I don't know, a couple of hours of free time to talk about the upbeat parts of this thing. I don't know. It seems like we work awfully hard.
I think that the paper would probably agree and take it because it would be another article.
Sure.
That they don't have to pay for.
Sure. Another barrel of ink.
Yeah.
I don't know, at this point, it probably would need to be a blog.
There you go.
Or maybe we're past blogs. That's so 2000. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. It's
Motion
just
to
after
adjourn?
8.
Great.
So, yeah, let's get out early.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Larry, for zooming in.